The executioner's axe gleamed under the midday sun. I knelt, head on the block, the crowd a blur of faces. I was Li Wei, a humble clerk, about to die for a crime I didn't commit. My loyalty to Prime Minister Zhang was absolute, yet he was the one who framed me, sacrificing me to cover his own vast web of corruption. I closed my eyes, remembering his final words, a cruel whisper of betrayal. The axe fell, but I felt no pain. Instead, darkness. When I awoke, I was in a shadowed chamber. Before me stood the Emperor himself, a figure rarely seen outside the palace walls. He told me he knew of Zhang's treachery, that my execution was a ruse, a chance to start anew. He offered me a new life, a new identity, and a single, all-consuming purpose, to become the blade in the darkness that would purge the court of its rot. I was no longer Li Wei, I was now Lord Jian, a forgotten nobleman from a distant province. With the Emperor's gold and my intimate knowledge of the court's inner workings, my mission began. Revenge was no longer a desire, it was my very reason for breathing. I entered the capital not as a ghost, but as a rising star. As Lord Jian, I was charming, witty, and impeccably connected, thanks to the Emperor's secret network. My first target was the Minister of Supplies, a gluttonous man whose greed was legendary. I used my knowledge of his illegal grain shipments, learned from my time as a clerk, to predict a shortage, then offered a solution that made me look like a hero, while simultaneously implicating him. He never saw it coming. The evidence, anonymously delivered to the censorate, was irrefutable. His fall was swift and brutal. My name was on everyone's lips. Next was General Gao, a brutish commander in the Prime Minister's pocket. He relied on fabricated military reports to secure funding. I orchestrated a minor border skirmish, a real one this time, forcing him to deploy troops he didn't have. His lies unraveled in spectacular fashion. He was stripped of his rank, his career in ruins. With each victory, my influence grew. I moved through the opulent halls of the court, a phantom of vengeance clad in silk. My methods were ruthless, my heart a block of ice. I hosted lavish banquets, my smile never reaching my eyes, as I gathered secrets and sowed discord among my enemies. They saw a charismatic nobleman. They were blind to the clerk they had sent to die. Prime Minister Zhang, my ultimate target, began to notice. He saw his allies falling one by one, but the hand that struck remained invisible. He grew paranoid, trusting no one. I was climbing the ladder he had built, using the very rungs of corruption he had installed. The Emperor watched from his throne, a silent partner in my grim work. He provided the resources, and I was the instrument of his will, a shadow doing what a ruler in the light could not. The court had become my chessboard, and I was moving pieces with deadly precision. Now holding the title of Grand Secretary, I was a power in my own right, my position second only to the Prime Minister himself. He watched me with suspicion, a flicker of recognition sometimes in his eyes. But he couldn't connect the powerful Lord Jian with the insignificant clerk he had destroyed. The game intensified. I started turning his own network against him. I leaked information that made his most loyal officials suspect each other of betrayal. The Minister of Rights was caught in a scandal I fabricated using his own private letters. The head of the Treasury was exposed for embezzlement I'd engineered by subtly altering his ledgers. The Prime Minister's power base crumbled from within. He was isolated, a cornered beast. The pressure was immense. He lashed out, making mistakes, his judgment clouded by fear and paranoia. He saw enemies in every shadow, never realizing the greatest shadow of all was standing right beside him in the Emperor's council, offering sympathetic words and poisonous advice. There were close calls. One of his spies almost uncovered my link to the Emperor's secret guard. I had to silence him, a grim task that left a bitter taste in my mouth. I was becoming the very thing I sought to destroy, a creature of the dark, skilled in deceit and manipulation. But I couldn't stop. Every time I looked at the Prime Minister, I saw the executioner's block. I remembered my family, ruined by his lies. The cold fire of vengeance burned away any doubt. My final move was to orchestrate a financial collapse, using my knowledge of his illegal foreign investments. I leaked the information to rival merchants, triggering a panic that threatened to bankrupt the state. The entire court was in an uproar, and all fingers pointed toward the source of the rot, the Prime Minister's office. The trap was sprung. The morning of the Imperial Council, the air was thick with tension. I stood before the Emperor and the assembled court, and I began to speak. Not as Lord Jian, but with the chilling authority of someone who knew every secret. I laid out Prime Minister Zhang's crimes, one by one, with irrefutable proof. The forged documents, the secret ledgers I had copied as a clerk, the testimonies from officials I had turned. I presented the entire web of corruption, tracing every thread back to the man at its center. The Prime Minister sputtered denials, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. He accused me of treason, of fabricating a conspiracy. But as I produced each piece of evidence, his allies, the few he had left, began to back away. They saw the truth, and they saw their own survival depended on abandoning a sinking ship. The final blow was a letter, one I had spent months searching for. It was in the Prime Minister's own hand, ordering my original framing and execution. I read it aloud, my voice steady and cold. The court fell silent. In that moment, the powerful Lord Jian vanished, and for a fleeting second, they all saw the ghost of the humble clerk, Li Wei, return from the grave. He stared at me, his eyes wide with horrified recognition. "You," he whispered. It was not a battle of swords, but of wits and revelations, and I had utterly disarmed him. He had built an empire of lies, and I had brought it crashing down with a simple, undeniable truth. His power, once absolute, evaporated into thin air. He was alone, exposed, and utterly defeated. The Prime Minister was stripped of all titles and sentenced to a life of exile in the harshest labor camps on the northern frontier. Fate worse than the swift death he had planned for me. Justice, cold and complete, had been served. I now stood where he once stood, the most powerful man in the empire, my influence unmatched. I was the Emperor's shadow, the silent hand that guided the realm. My revenge was complete. Every person who had wronged me, who had stood by and watched me kneel at the executioner's block, had paid the price. The court was cleansed, the government ran with an efficiency it hadn't seen in decades, and the Emperor's authority was absolute. But as I stood alone in the moonlit halls of the palace, I felt no triumph. I had one, but the cost was immeasurable. The man I was, the loyal clerk Li Wei, was truly gone. Not killed by the executioner's axe, but consumed by the fire of his own vengeance. I was Lord Jian, a master of shadows, a manipulator of men, a reflection of the very corruption I had fought. The Emperor had gotten what he wanted, a loyal, ruthlessly effective tool to enforce his will, and I had my revenge. But in the quiet of the night, I wondered if, in destroying my monster, I had simply created a new one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows.